Marlene was known to the world long before the world ever knew her pain. In her early 20s, she was already a celebrated blues songwriter. Her music carried longing, heartbreak, and truth, songs that reached deep into people's soul. Audience felt her sorrow without ever knowing its source. But behind the applause and the bright lights lived a young woman who felt profoundly alone. When Marlene discovered she was pregnant, everything changed. The affair had been brief, intense, and destined to remain a secret. In a world that praised her talent but judged her choices, Marlene made a quiet and life-altering decision. She disappeared. She boarded a soft-bound train, leaving behind her name, her fame, and the life everyone thought they knew. She chose a small, unforgotten town, that kind of place where nobody asks questions and everybody mind their own business. That was where she met Miss Louisa. Miss Louisa was an elderly widow with tired eyes and a guarded heart. She owned a modest, weathered-worn house at the edge of town, the kind of house that held more memories than visitors. When Marlene asked to rent the house, Miss Louisa studied her carefully as to weigh more than just the rent. "You don't look like someone passing through," Miss Louisa said. "I'm not," Marlene replied quietly. Miss Louisa tilted her head. "You're running away from something, or towards it." Marlene hesitated. Then she gave a honest smile. "Maybe a little or both." Miss Louisa nodded and said no more. "Some truths reveal themselves in time, sweetie." Marlene settled in a quiet routine. She lived modestly, wrote music in private, and let the day pass slowly. For the first time in years, no one asked her song. No one expected her to shine. In the evening, she and Miss Louisa sat together, sometimes talking, sometimes just wrapped in comfortable silence. They shared meals, memories, and the kind of quietness that didn't demand explanations. Over time, they grew trust. The bond between Marlene and Miss Louisa did not come all at once. It grew in the quiet, in sharing meals, eating without ceremony, in the evening on the porch watching the sun sink behind the trees, in the small acts of care. Miss Louisa leaving an extra blanket by Marlene's door, Marlene fixing a loose step without asking. Neither woman spoke much about the past. They didn't need to. Miss Louisa noticed things before Marlene ever said a word. The way Marlene tired easily, the way her hands instinctively guarded her middle, the way her eyes softened whenever she saw or heard children laughing down the street. Miss Louisa had lived long enough to know when to wait. One evening, rain tapped gently against the window. The house smelled of cornbread and warm tea. They sat at a small kitchen table, a single lamp casting a glow between them. Marlene stared into her cup longer than necessary. "You all right, child?" Miss Louisa asked. Marlene nodded at first, then slowly shook her head. "I've been carrying something for a long time." Miss Louisa didn't interrupt. She simply waited. "I wasn't always here," Marlene continued. "I had another life." "Most of us did," Miss Louisa replied gently. Marlene took a steady breath. "I was known. People recognized my voice, my face, my name." Miss Louisa studied her carefully now, not with curiosity, but with understanding. Fame doesn't always feel like a blessing. It never felt like one to me, Marlene said, her eyes full of tears. After a long pause, she whispered the words that she had rehearsed 100 times in her mind. I'm pregnant. Miss Louisa did not gasp, did not judge, didn't ask who the father was. She reached across the table and touched Marlene's hand. Then you ain't alone. The tears came then, not loud, not dramatic, just heavy. Months of fear poured out in the quiet sob. Marlene told everything she had no longer able to carry by herself. About the industry that loved her music but would destroy her for her choices. About the fear that her child would be taken from her, or worse, used. I didn't come here to save myself, Marlene said softly. I came here to protect my baby. And that's exactly what you're doing, Miss Louisa replied. Marlene looked up in her eyes, pleading. I need you to make a promise to me. Miss Louisa met her gaze. What is it, child? No matter what happens to me, no matter what anyone says, you will never tell my secret. The weight of that request settled heavy between them. Miss Louisa understood what the promise meant. Silence, sacrifices, and carrying a truth that could never be shared. You have my word, she said at last. As long as I have breath in my body, your secret will stay safe with me. That night, something unspoken settled between them. Miss Louisa was no longer just a landlord. Marlene was no longer just a tenant. They had become to be a close family. The baby came on a night when the skies would not rest. Rain beat against the roof. Wind rattled the windows. Thunder roared low and long, as if the earth itself was holding its breath. Marlene woke Miss Louisa just after midnight. It's time, she said, breathless. Miss Louisa wrapped her shawl around her, steady hands doing what fear could not interrupt. You stay with me, child. Just breathe. Labor was long. Pain came in waves that stole Marlene's strength, but she never cried out for herself, only whispered prayers for her child. Between the contractions, she clutched Miss Louisa's hand. If something happens, hush now, Miss Louisa said firmly. You already have my promise. As dawn tried to break through the storm, the baby finally cried, small, sharp, alive. Marlene smiled, not a smile of a star, but a smile of a mother. She's beautiful, isn't she? Marlene whispered. She surely is, Miss Louisa said, tears streaming down her face. Marlene brushed the baby's cheek with her hands. Then her hands fell still. She was gone. The room grew quiet in a way Miss Louisa would never forget. Morning light filled the room slowly, cautiously, as if it knew grief lived there now. The baby slept peacefully, unaware of the life she had just entered. Miss Louisa watched her breathe and remembered the promise. No matter what happened to me, you must never tell anyone my secret. Marlene was buried quietly. No name in the papers, no visitors, no songs played aloud. Only a woman loved enough to keep hidden. That evening, Miss Louisa sat in the rocking chair with the baby cradled in her arm. Your mama trusted me with everything she had, she whispered. The baby stirred, tidy fingers curled around Miss Louisa's thumb. Something inside Miss Louisa shifted. "You need a name, little one," she said. She thought of Marlene's quiet strength, her courage, her gentleness. Marlene whispered. The baby sighed, as if she accepted it. Miss Louisa did not know how long she had left in this world, but she knew this: she would raise Marlene with love. She would guard Marlene's secret. She would teach the child kindness, music, and truth, even if the whole truth had to wait. The storm had passed, but its echoes would live on in a child named Maureen.